I kind of remember it in basically these brief flashes. It's almost like a dream in a way. That day, it was a Friday. We were supposed to be making gingerbread houses in class with our parents. So parents were coming into the school in order to help with that. And so in my classroom, it was around 9 a.m. when it happened, or a little bit before then. My classroom wasn't one of the ones that the shooter actually got into. We were down the hall around a corner from the ones he got into, but I was in first grade, the same grade as the ones that he did get into, and I knew many of the kids who were taken from us. And so on the day itself, we had gathered in the classroom. Parents were starting to come in. A few parents were already in my classroom. My mom was actually on the way to the building when the shooting started happening. She got to the building right after the shooter entered. Had she been there a minute sooner, she probably would have been in the building right when he entered, and she would have been shot and killed, unfortunately. Thank God she wasn't. And so in my classroom, it started. I remember hearing a PA system in the building. It went on. Our principal, Don Hochsprung, announced for us to, take cover, hide, something like that. I'm not fully familiar with it. I was too young to remember. And then again, given my young age and everyone else in the room, I'm sure the adults knew what was happening, but for us kids, it was a very scary situation, but we just could not comprehend what a shooting was, and we just couldn't understand, why we were forced to hide in the cubbies and take cover, and then why, after a few minutes, although it felt like longer than that, we were forced to march through the hallways with our hands over our heads like this so we couldn't see anything, all while we were surrounded by police officers, all while, we saw officers with their guns drawn, with, just general chaos. We were forced to then exit out a window in one of the classrooms, and then marched around the building through the playground to the front parking lot, where we were, met by like a scene of, again, just chaos, ambulances, police cars, fire trucks, distressed parents. I remember my mom, again, she had been at school like right after it started while it was still happening. She came running up to me in tears, which is kind of the first indication for me that something had gone horribly wrong, because I'd never seen her cry before. And that was just, a shock for, my 6-year-old brain, to say the least. And again, then we were kind of led down to the fire station, which was right by the school in our town, where we were set to evacuate. And so my parents came, they took me home, and then next day, it took me for a walk, and they told me that I would never see some of my friends again. I mean, I wouldn't say that like it's, it's not like it's an overarching, like every day I think about it, but it is certainly a very ever-present topic, and especially around this time of the year when, tomorrow is the day itself. It's a very like hard to ignore, the trauma in the tragedy, it fades, but it doesn't go away. And again, you're reminded of it at so many points throughout the year and just throughout what you're doing. And again, it's awful. I think most important for people to remember is that they should still be here today. The ones, my friends, those teachers, everyone who was in that building that day should still be with us. And I think for people who maybe weren't at Sandy Hook or who didn't know, the people like I did, it's important to kind of remember your empathy and to remember that, imagine if that was your kid who you went to school or sent to school one day and didn't come back, or if that was, your mother who went to school to teach and didn't come back. That's the real tragedy of it, I think, is that it seems like it was a one-day tragedy, but for the families and the friends, the victims, it continues over and over, year after year. And people need to remember that even if you don't know someone who's been personally, shot and killed or affected by gun violence, you could know someone. And that's why we're really all in this fight. So knowing what it was like to be in that building, I don't want anyone else to ever have to feel that those feelings I felt that day and every day afterwards again. And I certainly don't want, my future kids to get in the school bus one day and be in a shooting, or even worse, not come back home from school because they were shot and killed at school. That's what really matters to me, is that, I want my family and all my friends to be safe.